Hi everybody, so my name's Alan Strachan and I'm sitting with my great friend Jason Cowan, and we are going to do a wee chat today, podcast if you like, about men's mental health. The reason we're going to do that is we both run a fitness competition called 55 Games, and we are going to be doing a charity day on December the 16th for Suicide Prevention Scotland, a charity called Chris's House. We did me and Jay had a chat maybe about 4 or 5 weeks ago in relation to Jay's TV appearances in Big Brother and his background as well with fitness. It went pretty well actually. We got some brilliant feedback, so we decided we were going to do another one, but we felt that the best way of doing it and what the chosen topic would be something that everybody could relate to, because everybody has their own battles in their mind, if you like, at some point in their life. So that's kind of why we're doing this. Jay, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
So, what Alan said was the topic of mental health. Primarily, we'll talk about male mental health because we can relate to that, and we're no experts. So, but we've had some trials and tribulations through life, and what was our coping mechanisms, how we felt, and particularly this time of year, like coming up to Christmas. A lot of people don't like this time of year. It's a lonely time. They live by themselves. So we're just going to talk, and hopefully people that watch this can get can get a little insight and what can make them feel better, how they can cope, and just it's just an all round chat that people can relate to, and they can on the outside, me and Alan, we're fit, we look healthy, but we've got the inner demons as well. We've got the battles every day. Your biggest conversations with yourself in life. So it's all about trying to like yourself and self-care. But the last podcast we did was incredible, the feedback. I got a lot of private messages, and people were saying that they get some great stuff out of it, and they were saying, why don't you do something else? So we've chosen mental health, and hopefully we can help people get through things. So
Cool. Okay.
So Alan's been very open recently about his battles with depression. I've known Alan my whole life, and he's only recently opened up about it. Alan kept a lot of stuff to himself, and when he was struggling, he would kind of go away somewhere or hide away and try to deal with it himself. So recently he's put up some great posts on social media, and on an outside, everybody's thinking Alan Strachan, very successful, keeps in great shape, great businesses, it looks great on the outside, but then on the inside that no one sees, this is where he's became very truthful and honest, and he's showed his vulnerability. So what made you decide to open up then and put that stuff in social media, having all those years never shown anybody that side of you?
So I'll be 50 in about 3 weeks, and I think I've reached a stage that you just were like, you don't really, I can only speak for myself, and probably speaking about myself, a lot of people would relate to when you're younger, when you're in your 20s, when you're in your 30s. You bother what other folk think. As much as you don't think you do, it's quite blasé. Sometimes you might make a comment, you're young. You do care what people think.
And also when you're young, you're like invincible as well. So you don't, things you could do when you were in your 20s, you can't do that now. You have to, you can't go out in the bevy and have weekend benders and recover and feel all right. You can't do things like that now, so you've got to kind of make lifestyle changes when you're 40, 50.
Everything's different, but I've reached a stage that it doesn't really matter what anybody thinks. I put a post out 7 or 8 weeks ago, which was quite a big thing. It was a Sunday night, and I didn't feel in a good place, and I realised that was a couple of friends as well that I knew weren't particularly having good times the now, and I thought, you know what, stuff it, and I put a big post out. I didn't know what the reaction would be. It wasn't to create a reaction. I wasn't looking every 5 minutes to see who liked it, etc.
It wasn't for validation.
No, in the slightest.
Or people would say, Alan, that's great, you've put that up. You know, you were very honest, and you felt that you had to let people know that you struggle. And it's all right to struggle. It's all right to struggle.
We did the 55 games in September, and it was really busy. It was a beautiful weekend. The weather was great, and the next day, the guys that I booked, the videographers, we did a documentary, and I had to get interviewed. And I watched the interview back, and the interview went really well. But what people didn't realise is I was really struggling at the start of that interview, even getting in there. And when I finished the interview and I watched it, I was staggered at how I came across, because you wouldn't know there was any problems. And when I watched it and we posted it that night, I thought to myself, wow, I can't believe I pulled that off, because it was really tough. So that's why I put the post up, and then before I know it, I was getting tons and tons of private messages from people. It wasn't necessarily that people were putting a comment up that other folk could see. It was private messages for people who were really struggling. It was some people I knew and people I didn't know, and had found me on Messenger, etc. And I was staggered by the response, and it actually made me feel good that I had went out to address it. We're going to show at the end of this interview a really, really powerful video from Norwich City that was done in the Mental Health Day.
You showed me
that I only showed you.
I seen that for the first time, and the power of that video is incredible. You have to watch this. It's at the end. We're going to put that on at the end.
At the end. Please watch it. It's only a couple of minutes. If you haven't seen it, it's the reaction.
You know, and there's like I said to you last night. There's like a Japanese saying that is people who have three faces. You have the face that you show the world. You have the face that you show your friends and family, but then you have the face that no one else sees. And that's the one that no one knows about. You know, if you take the kind of Robin Williams, he was always doing comedies, making people laugh, but deep inside he was screaming for. He was
when
lonely.
you read his story, it's incredible.
He was lonely, but when you watch him, he was like the life and soul of the party. But inside that no one's seen, he was like in turmoil. And that's where a lot of people. You know, you never showed anybody your third face. And I only really knew that you were suffering, probably, not suffering, but maybe in the last, 5 or 6 years. You know, I never knew. You know, you kept it that well hidden.
Yeah.
I would come in and you'd be a bit low sometimes, but you were always still training. You were always, and when I come in to see you, you put on that front that you showed people that you were feeling all right, you were feeling good. So for you then to come out and do that post, because a lot of people, especially in Hamilton, who know you over the years, I mean, they'll see you as a very successful guy, never had a problem with life, you've got great businesses, you've always been busy, you've always had a purpose. A lot of people who suffer from mental health, they don't have a purpose in life, or they've got a lot of financial pressures. Whereas you've always had the purpose. You've always had money. So, but looking at it now, I feel that the reason why you've always kept busy and had the purpose was because it kept your mind busy, so is that you didn't need to think about things too much.
So one of the things that I found dead interesting, doing a lot of sort of stats and watching podcasts, with different experts, if you like, especially in the lead up to us chatting, was I found people who have addictions, and most people have an addiction of some sort, but there's different types of addiction. You've got people that get general addictions, like a thing they go to for every day, might be something stupid like they like a roll and sausage in the morning, that's what they have, to somebody that's, a wee bit stronger. When you've got trauma that's been sitting there for childhood, which again, so many people have, and they're not aware of it, what I found really interesting is if the trauma has never been dealt with, that trauma leads to addictions. Now it's where your addictions, it's the choice of addiction that you take. I made a decision very early, like when I was young, to work out what would work for me, because even when I was younger, I was affected with sadness. You didn't know what it was then. You didn't understand.
There was no label.
There was no label back then. You didn't know. You never went to school and said I felt depressed.
You felt lower. You just felt maybe a wee bit out of sorts, or
100%.
you felt you were great. There was no anxiety, depression. You never knew what it was. It was just emotions. It was just emotions.
1,000,000%. And when I left school, I had always been lucky at school. We had played football. We ran. We trained all the time. Not necessarily with weights. You didn't train weights back then, but
you were always socially interacted with your
100%.
pals, kicking the ball about, going to the clubs. So you were always busy.
1,000%. So I was aware how that made me feel, this exhilarated heart rate.
Yeah.
And that led to me, as I got older, falling into the career I got with the fitness trainer. But what I also got addicted to was when I left school, I had nothing. I tossed about in jobs. I was on jobs I hated for 4 weeks, 5 weeks. I'd get sacked for everywhere.
Yeah.
4 or 5 weeks.
I remember when I joined the Navy, I'd come back and you were like I dare I say like a bum, but you know, and then I would come back on leave and I would be like, right, let's go to Hamilton Palace. You're like, do you have any money? And I said, don't worry about the money, you know, I'll take you out and all that. But you were on the dole, you were signing on, you'd YTSs, you know, you were everything it was a struggle. So that was a struggle for you.
What for me, for self-worth, because that didn't make me feel good. You imagine you're a young guy, you're only 18, 19. You go to the nightclubs. There's a nice lassie that you like.
You can't afford to take.
You can't afford to take her out. It's how you're going to ask her out.
Yeah.
And then there's other boys that are on apprenticeships, and it sounded good. Apprentice electrician, apprentice
driving nice cars, and they've got a good wage.
So I didn't know what the future held. So whenever I got £1, I tried to save it. I tried to save 90 pence of the pound.
Yeah.
Preposterously, but that's what I did. But what I didn't realise was, as I saved and I saved and I saved, I didn't realise there was an addiction here with what I was doing. But the flip side was, it was to try and make me feel good. So I worked out, there was two avenues that kept me up, if you like, was training and saving. Back to when I left school, I had no qualifications. Guys that were friends at the time, everybody seemed to be going in a direction that was going to be very
good
positive,
career.
a great career. You know, because back then apprenticeships were a big thing.
And I know people that, you know, who were, say, you grew up with in your street and all that and went to school with, they were doing very well when they left school, you know, and that was, they probably looked at you like as like a bum, you know, because they were doing well.
100%. And that is the way. Back then it was a ruthless time.
Yeah, if you had to sign on for school, then I know it's a generalisation, but it was as if you had no prospects. You know, and then other people would look at you like going to you'd feel embarrassed to go to the job centre and sign on. You didn't want anybody to know that.
And even if you take, when you talk about people and their mental health right now, the importance of having a job,
self-worth,
that you enjoy.
It's all self-worth.
I
know people who are trained right now who don't feel worthy, based on the job they've got, past relationships, and they're struggling every day to feel like worthy of, you know, getting a great relationship just based on past relationships. You know, they've been put down in the relationships, and that in itself causes a lot of issues as well. So that they look at themselves and they don't feel worthy. So that's a big thing.
Because there's a lot of personal interaction with the job that we do.
I've got people who every day is a battle. You know, I think when it comes to a lot of people, you know, nobody ever feels great all the time. Right? We've all got a bit of bipolar in us because nobody's constantly feeling good, right? So you've times in life where you have to dig the trenches and it's tough, but then it doesn't last long. You know, for the most people, and then you've good times and you enjoy it. But I deal with people, I train people who they're constantly every day is a battle. you know, the suicidal thoughts every day, and it's a battle, you know. So there's a lot of extremes with mental health, but I think everybody suffers a little bit. I mean, I've been kind of pretty solid my whole life, and I think going away at 17, joining the Navy, that gave me a mental toughness. I left the family and I had to stand on my own 2 feet at 17, and then getting into the weight training was great, and then, you know, things like that. But there was a moment in my life, in my 30s, where I had a tough situation. It was the hardest thing I've ever went through for a year, and I had that hanging over me for a full year. So what that created a lot of paranoia and anxiety, because you're thinking about the worst possible outcome that could have happened. So every day, etched on your brain, you've got this thing hanging over you. Before you went to bed at night, it was there. You woke up first thing in the morning, it was there. So a big thing for me was the training. I would run every day to try and keep myself feeling good. I would do weights every day. I would go to bed early, and that was my only escapism, was going to sleep. And even then, you dreamt about it. You know, your dreams were like a distorted thing of what was going on in your life. So I slept for like 10, 11 hours just to forget, just to escape. But that was a tough time for me. And then a full year I had that. But then when the outcome, you get your favourable result, what happens is that because you've had such, for let's say, paranoia and anxiety for a whole year, your brain is then rewired. You then have anxiety and paranoia. It doesn't just go away because the outcome's been a favourable result. So your brain's been rewired. Yeah, you now have those thoughts constant, you know. But what you have to do is manage it. You have to manage those emotions,
because you've had a traumatic experience.
That's it. It's trauma.
And that trauma, how are you going to pull that out?
Even though you get the favourable result, because you've been thinking like that for a whole year, your brain then is rewired to think like that. If you touch on the COVID situation, because that COVID, the fear and the lockdowns and everything, there was so much fear in people, anxiety, paranoia, and that lasted for so long. People now their brains are rewired for anxiety. Even though it's not gone, but the lockdowns are gone. People are now paranoid and anxious because of that whole situation. Because that was like a trauma for people. People were dying, the fear, the media created fear. It was there, it was true, you know, everything was real, but people have their brains have been rewired now. You know, people are now paranoid, anxious, just in general day life. And again, it's situations in life that create the mental health issues. So if we go into like a generalisation for people, you know, what causes a lot of people to kind of, you know, suffer from mental health issues, anxiety, you know, paranoia, depression. If you look at the environment we're in today, social media, I mean, it's like people are, you know, you've got people putting up, going 6 holidays a year, posting up pictures in a loving relationship, life's amazing, and then you've got someone watching that who can barely afford 1 holiday a year. You know, they're lonely, they're single, you know, and they're looking at how good other people's lives are. So that in itself creates a lot of, you're not worthy. How come my life's like this and all these other people are having such an affluent life? And you know, social media creates a lot of anxiety for people, a lot of problems. These people that are posting up 6 holidays a year, they're looking for like validation. So is your life really that good? If you need people to like that you're having such a great life, you know, a lot of people go on these holidays, 5-star luxury, and maybe they don't particularly like the person that they're going with. You know, they're in a horrible relationship, but they're putting it up because people say, "Oh, you've got a great life," you know, and that's what social media does. And also, a lot of factors is like the financial strain on people, paying bills. I mean, see that financial pressure, the debt. That creates so much anxiety for people. I mean, it's like, especially as you're getting older, people, you know, you're worrying about, you know, what does the future hold? You know, how can I pay all these bills? And the cost of living was huge.
Well, the cost of living now is,
I mean,
it's a different country this now, if you what it was a couple of years ago.
I mean, people are really struggling. You go to the supermarket and they put 20% on everything. These energy companies, what they done was scandalous. The government said, right, everybody, we'll give you 60 quid just to cope a month. But the energy companies were still making their hundreds of millions profit, because the government were giving people 60 quid.
We also decided to do this as well at this time of the year. I mean, arguably for what, in the last 4 or 5 weeks, it's dark now, like
sunlight's massive. See the power of the blue skies getting in the sunlight. It's like the last couple of days, it's been great sunshine. So what works for me to keep me feeling good? I'll go for walks in the forest. I sit in the forest and I sit on a bench, and the sunlight just goes right through me, right in my eyeballs, and you get, it's like light therapy. People have the SAD, seasonal adjustment disorder, and I mean, I think I have that as well. Hence why any sunny day I sit in the sunlight and let the sunlight flood my brain, and it works. It's such a huge, it lightens the brain.
I've just got back, as you know, from Cyprus and Barcelona, where the weather was fantastic, and I was nearly there for 2 weeks, and I'm only back a week, and the dynamic for me has been massive for getting that sun, that contrast, and this has been tough. Yeah. And you realise as well another thing that in relation to what our topic is. If somebody does live by themselves, it's self-isolation a lot sooner in the day. Yeah. So you're now, the minute it gets dark, and I was even last night, 6 o'clock at night, I'd made my dinner. It's pitch black outside. I'm not going anywhere last night.
You don't have that hustle bustle of the family life, the kids run about chatting, the laughter, your partner, you're cuddling in on the couch, watching a movie. I'm the same, you're sitting by yourself, you've done your training. The training, you get that buzz of the training, so you've trained and then you get the buzz for an hour of the training, then that buzz disappears and then you're sitting by yourself.
But then again, what's somebody else's buzz? So if somebody else watching this isn't into their training, I mean, what have they done that day that has kept them going?
Some people are isolated, they just sit in the house themselves the whole day, and that's a tough gig. Loneliness. I love my own company. I can sit by myself, but sometimes at the weekend when I'm not working and I don't have any clients, I can go a full weekend not speaking to anybody, and that's a bit detrimental, even for me, because there's no interaction. Us as humans are designed to interact with other humans. We've been in tribes for millions of years. It's a social, around the fire, cavemen eating your food. We're very sociable animals. Our brains wired for millions of years to be sociable. So when you get that isolation, we're not designed to have isolation, and that's why mentally a lot of people suffer. Especially as you get older. When you're younger, you can cope with it. That. We cope. There wasn't a label, but when you hit like 40s, 50s, 60s, even like somebody, the older generation, like your grandfather, when he's by himself and he's just living by himself, he doesn't want to leave the house. No. He doesn't want to go up out his bed.
So even if you take the amount of people that are older, that have had a partner for 50 years, for 60 years, for 70 years. So even using my granda, for example, my granda we lost him a couple of months ago, at just turning 96. My granda lost my gran when he was 92 and she was 88. Yeah. Now they've been together for 70 years.
And that house, it was a great company.
The instant change in him was unbelievable. So I can only, you can only take for watching that and watching how low, how he just sank, and he loved Christmas. They loved Christmas, and the last couple of years was a nightmare for him. Yeah. And so you can imagine the amount of older people out there right now that have lost a partner. Women's lost their husband, husband's lost it, or have lost family members.
And a lot of people at that age haven't got the mobility to get out. Yeah. So they're stuck in their own prison, if you like, because they can't even get out. They've maybe got problems with their mobility, and they look forward to maybe somebody coming to the house, or a phone call and stuff like that. So I mean, we are 50, well, yours is in a couple of weeks, so, and we already feel, but we've got a social circle, we've got mobility, we've got training, we've got our health, but we still feel the loneliness, because we live by ourselves. So that's a huge thing. Is so we've touched on, that year that I had, but I feel that this chat and why we're doing it and the games for Chrissy's House, suicide prevention, is more relevant to you. And I know there was a certain time in your life a few years ago where you really struggled, and just to let kind of viewers know that before you touch on this, you're going to be very, very open, just to let them know that you're going to say some stuff that you haven't, that nobody knows about. This is a very, very, it's a sensitive subject, but you've went through it. So just to let viewers know before they watch this that you're going to say some stuff that some people might find a wee bit hard to listen to, but it's relevant to what we're trying to talk about, and also to the charity Chrissy's House in Wishaw that we're doing the games for.
So I chose the charity because I'd read the story of Anne Rowan, that was the mother of Chris, who committed suicide at 36. I found out a wee bit of background about the charity. When I 6-7 years ago, I had 3 or 4 things happen to me that really hit me for 6. Like literally one thing that would hit anybody, and another thing, and another thing, and another thing, and I wasn't. My mind was not prepared for it. I'd been in a relationship for 5 years that had broken up. That we had missed. There was a miscarriage at the end of the relationship, which was sad. And then on top of that, I had taken on a lot of debt with my business, and I didn't realise the magnitude of this debt. And before I knew it, having a business that was pretty organised became the exact opposite. And then on top of that, to try and get rid of that debt, I went into more debt. And the flip side was it put me really mentally under. And I didn't know what to do. I suppressed everything, I didn't talk to anybody. And as the days went on and on and on and on, I started to realise that something wasn't right. I became very withdrawn. I was PTing at the time. I was still pretty busy, and the job at that time is extremely difficult because somebody's paying you for your so-called expertise. They're also paying you for your energy. Everything.
It's all energy.
And inside I felt horrendous, but I found the smile, I found whatever it was I was supposed to find, that you wouldn't know there was a problem. But it got worse and worse and worse, and I genuinely, when I got to a stage I didn't know what to do, and I seriously, my depression got that bad that I planned to commit suicide. And I remember every single bit. It was a Friday. The Friday was obviously the end of the working week for me, and on the Thursday night, I was actually in this kitchen and I wrote 3 notes. I wrote a note to you, I wrote a note to my mum, and I wrote a note to another good friend of mine, and they were genuinely written that I wouldn't be here when you read them. And I can remember on the Friday morning, it was the most dysfunctional day I can ever remember, where I woke up and my brain was was in so much trouble that my brain decided at 7 o'clock on the Friday night that I would walk round the back of my gym, where the tree's actually still there. I had got a rope, and my plan was at 7 o'clock at night was to basically tie that rope around my neck, and I didn't really perceive anything else. And at 7 o'clock I would get on with my day, and at 7 o'clock at night, and it had to be 7 o'clock, that's how dysfunctional the brain was. I was going to do it, and 7 o'clock came. I was like a zombie all day, and I went round the back of the gym and I put the rope round my neck. I had probably 40% rationale and I had 60% irrational. And the battle that I had for probably an hour when I tied the rope round my neck was staggering, because the 40% was absolutely in complete and utter fight, survival fight. And I had an hour, I literally had the rope around my neck. I went tight, I went extremely tight. I knew it today. I'd done some bits and bobs on how to do it, etc. And it was a horrendous hour. And luckily for me, the rational side somehow got through it and defeated the irrational side. And I can remember the magnitude after it was, you know, I hadn't been well for months, but I didn't realise how severe I hadn't been well. But that's never left me. So I think when we picked the charity to do, because we always like to try and do something with the 55 games once a year for a charity, and for this, especially at this time of the year, when it is a difficult time for so many people. Statistically, suicide is high at this. It's at the highest it's going to be, and I think especially with the story for with the charity we've chosen, Chris's House, that sat with me, you know. And
I mean, I can remember that time and how your mum and dad was. I mean, their family were the knock-on effect of your suffering, and then how that affected like families, people, your mum and dad. So
anybody that is watching this, that story might have resonated with, and I'm sure it has with a lot of people. That's the bit that you don't realise, which isn't your fault in any shape or form. You can't help how you feel, but the magnitude of the domino effect, what that does to your family and your friends.
I mean, you're not at that time when you're contemplating what you're going to do, you're not even thinking about anybody else.
No.
You're not thinking about how that's going to leave your family.
And even when I hear now stories of people that have committed suicide, and the first instinct I have is this horrendous feeling for that individual, that they felt that they just couldn't deal with it anymore, and you wonder what the percentage is of the people that have held it and they haven't offloaded it, you know, and they've went into hiding from it instead of being able to talk to somebody. That's the bit that's first time I ever hear anything, whether it's you've heard a young guy or an older guy, and a young lassie, an older lassie, doing that. That's the first thing that I think. Did they go and speak to somebody? Did they go out and get help, try and get help, or did they hoard it? But the flip side is what the families are left with, and the friends are left with, is horrendous.
But you know, as you say, the battle with yourself, when you get to that stage, you're not thinking about speaking to anybody.
No,
because you've got an overriding switch.
Aye.
That's going to do what it's going to do. So you're not thinking about your family, no. how the aftermath. You're not thinking about that. So
I think the thing as well is the embarrassment side of things, where if there's a difference between no feeling great in a day and really knowing something's not right. Now, when you realise that something really isn't right, you've got a decision to make, because you're holding this. For me personally, whenever I go like that, I find that I basically sink in here.
Yeah,
so when I'm talking to you, it's no me that's talking to you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I think the big thing as well is the embarrassment side of things. For what I can remember, especially with my experience there, and even at times in my life now, is you feel you're a burden to people, because everybody's got their own daily issues and struggles. So there's a difference between feeling sad in a day and knowing something's a wee bit different for Saturday, there's something a wee bit deeper going on. But I think that's the thing, that whenever I ever hear about people who have committed suicide, that's the thing that grabs me. Did they speak to somebody? You know, and the sad thing is that the majority of people I don't think do, and the only reason I can imagine that is because that's the way I dealt with the situation, and that's one of the major reasons why I found myself where I did and where I ended up, and by the grace of God it never happened, you know. So just to end as well, on 16th of December we are running a 55 games charity event for Chris's house in Wishaw. There's going to be about 80 athletes at 55 Clydesdale Street. It's going to be absolutely packed. You can make a donation if you'd like to on the 55 Games Instagram homepage. There is a link at the top of the page, you just simply click it. Or if you want to come down as a spectator, whether you're obviously family or friends of one of the athletes or just somebody that would like to watch it, it'll be running between 9 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it will be £10 to get in. It's going to be a fantastic day for an incredibly important charity, and we hope to see you there. We hope you've enjoyed the chat we've had, and we wish everybody all the best, have a lovely Christmas, and try and
even just, you know, we're here, you can message, if you're suffering, message me and Alan, and we can get a blether.
1,000,000%.
You know, I'm always kind of on Messenger and all that, Facebook. Just if you want to chat, want to meet for a cup of coffee, you know, even if you're a stranger but you're suffering, I'll come meet you for a cup of coffee. You know what I mean? I'll pay for it, which is a rare thing, but thanks for watching.
And if you can, stay with us to watch the next 2 minutes for the Norwich City video, which is incredible.
Oh wow, how are you doing? You good? Oh, sorry, thank you. How you doing? God, it's exciting, isn't it?
So, how's the week been?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.